if you want to follow along today, I have this link here where we can take shared notes in a Google Doc. This is something that we did over the summer and worked really well, but feel free, anyone, to just grab that link. I've also pasted it in the chat up at the top there in case you happen to lose it. And a link to these slides is there as well. I'm not sure if you can download them or not from the WebEx, but anyway. So I want to announce that this Drupal working group will have a presence at the next ESIP winter meeting. And ESIP stands for Earth Science Information Partners, just in case everyone was wondering, what the heck is ESIP? But there's a link there to information about the winter meeting. And our Drupal working group is going to have 2 sessions at that winter meeting. One is just an open house where we'll be able to talk about why all of us use Drupal to folks that might be interested. And Cheryl, Crystal, I see your comment there, so I'll post that link. And that open house will feature this really cool project out of, I think, Alabama, Huntsville, in conjunction with Bruce's Science on Drupal New Media Studio group. But we're also having our very first Science on Drupal code sprint there, and we're having a discussion on our groups page about what topics we want to tackle. David, the co-chair of this group here, just put that up about a week ago, so feel free to find more information at that link and vote and comment on potential code sprint ideas. And so we'll send out emails offline here about more information for the winter meeting. So without taking up too much more time, I want to turn it over to Carrie and her presentation on Drupal backups and best practices using the Backup and Migrate module and NodeSquirrel. So I'll post this link, and Carrie, it is all you. I'll pass the ball over to you.
Okay.
And,
all right. Do we need to do anything to share a screen? Or
yeah,
is,
I'm trying to turn it. I know. Why does this interface look different?
I know they've changed.
Okay, good. I'm not crazy.
So if you go to the Quick Start tab.
Thank you.
There we go. All right.
I think the middle bar.
Thank you.
Gotcha. All right, I'm going to mute, and then I'll just monitor the chat. If you need me, I'll pipe back in.
Awesome, great.
All right. So I'm going to just switch. There we go. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Adam said, I'm Carrie Pepe. With me is Drew Gorton.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about Backup and Migrate and NodeSquirrel and a few of the things that we've learned about best practices when it comes to backups and hopefully how these tools can help you. Drew happens to be the CEO of Gorton Studios, which, Drew, why don't I let you, I can talk about you, or you can just talk.
No, that's fine. There we go. I'm the CEO of Gorton Studios. We're a firm that's been doing great Drupal stuff for a long time. We got involved with Drupal back in the 4.4, 4.5 era, which is, forever ago. Really started thinking it was a pretty neat tool. Somewhere around 4.6, 4.7, and so we've been active in the community for a very long time. And as that relates to today, one of the things that we did a long time ago was contribute a module called Backup and Migrate, and it's been part of the ecosystem since then. And I'm obviously the Gorton of Gorton Studios. And Carrie, you didn't say anything about yourself.
No, I didn't. But I'm the Carrie of Gorton Studios. I have a couple of roles here at Gorton Studios. One of them is product manager for NodeSquirrel, and then I also do work with content strategy for our clients as well. So I'm wearing the NodeSquirrel hat today. Mm-hmm. And so Drew mentioned founded in 2001 and been involved with Drupal since version 4.7. Drew, Ronan actually created the Backup and Migrate module in 2005 for Drupal 5 and has been developing it since then, right?
Yeah.
A few co-maintainers for the module, I think, here and there, but mostly
really.
He's been working solo.
Basically Ronan, yep.
Right.
Yep.
Backup Migrate is one of the most popular modules in the Drupal ecosystem. It's number 17 last time I checked on the list of most used modules. It's got about 1.6 million downloads and reported installs about 290K. So all of that to say that it's been a really popular and I think much appreciated module among developers and then also I think among site admins and site maintainers. So then you started NodeSquirrel and launched it in late 2012. Yep.
And so, we'll talk about what Backup Migrate is and does, and why we made it in the first place, and then NodeSquirrel is kind of solving a problem that it created. And very briefly, Backup Migrate makes it super easy to create a really very targeted Drupal backup that is sort of Drupal optimized, as it were. So it's a great way to replicate a live environment. For example, is you just drop into the admin interface, either make a new backup right now, or just grab one from this morning, and then upload it on your install it on your local dev machine. So restore, and there you go. You've got the situation. The site is duplicated, and you can start solving the problem. And originally, Ronan wrote it out of frustration with different hosts, basically. Like sometimes you had command line access, sometimes you had like a hobbled PHP myadmin you could get to. Sometimes there were other things, or you had to put in a ticket to support. Like there are all different kinds of situations, and he realized that he was spending so much time just trying to solve this problem. Like, this host or this server or this, whatever the environment was, that's how you get to the database. And he sort of reasoned out, well, you know what can read Drupal's database? Drupal. And he took that as a starting point and said, this is going to work anywhere Drupal works. That's my baseline. I just want it to work when Drupal works. And then it's going to be there, it's going to be reliable, and it's going to make backups, and it's going to make it easy for me to be able to restore this onto my local computer. And that was, all open source software is scratching your own itch. That was very much the itch he was scratching. And again, other people have obviously had it as well. It has some, it's useful to have backups. These are good things. Nope. Did you? I forwarded the point. Yeah, right.
So I just want to. I don't think we.
We didn't mention
much about what NodeSquirrel is, right?
Sure. Right. So NodeSquirrel is basically offsite storage for Backup Migrate, essentially. So Backup Migrate by default will make a backup and store it where you tell it to. But out of the box, what's configured is the local files directory, because that's the one thing that Drupal always has. That's great, except for a backup on your local server is not really a backup. It's a backup in some situations, but for any sort of serious problem, a backup sitting right next to the thing that went wrong is not terribly robust in terms of being a backup. And so NodeSquirrel is an offsite extension of Backup Migrate. It's a destination, basically, for Backup Migrate to send things. And so we're going to be talking about Backup Migrate and why it's useful and such. But NodeSquirrel is basically just it's a paid service that extends Backup Migrate effectively to make it easy to get your backups offsite.
So Drew and I have both individually had our horrific at times experiences with backups not being there, clients experiencing very bad things with their websites or doing very bad things to their websites, and it's really kind of why we both sit here and go, oh, this is so important. Yeah. This is so important. I was in the situation where not while I was with Gorton Studios, but we had a former job where a client's website went down. The hosting company was supposed to have had backups. It turns out that those backups of the database were corrupted for weeks back. And so I got to tell the client that we were going to use a version of their database dated back a couple of weeks, and that all the content that volunteers had been entering in the meantime, well, that was just gone.
Yeah.
And that
was like lesson plans from like hundreds of teachers.
Exactly. It was the client was an organization that offered ESL classes, and volunteer teachers were in leaving notes about, here's what I taught today, here's what went well, and all of that was gone. And that day that took a couple of years off my life, I think. It's just no fun to have to find out that kind of, it's no fun to find out that data's gone.
Yeah.
And if we'd had Backup and Migrate and NodeSquirrel running, we just wouldn't have been in that position.
Yeah. And we've seen similar things while working here at Gorton Studios, where otherwise reputable hosting companies or people like not GoDaddy, like just like companies that are real that charge 3-figure sums for monthly host fees and have an extra line for backup and such. Something goes wrong. It turns out for whatever reason the backups don't work. And we've seen that multiple times. And one of the ones I'm thinking of is about a year ago, actually, we had a school district that we worked with have this problem. And, it was going to go back months, I think, for the host backups. And while the host was going and the ticket was in and they were trying to figure out what was going wrong, we were able to just check the NodeSquirrel repository and say, oh, we've got one from this morning. I think it works. Boom, works, done. And we look like heroes. And I don't know. I mean, like the bad on that story would have been really horrendous. But basically, we were able to recover almost immediately. And that felt pretty awesome. And also let us get back to the things that we were supposed to be working on that day, with really not that much fuss. But even things like people installing modules on a website. I'm sorry. One of the things, like we're using the language of clients and such, but that's kind of like our worldview. How many of your members are making sites for others versus for themselves?
So me personally, I just manage one site for Woods Hole Graphic Institution for a data management office. So I'm not working on too many sites external to my job. But that's just me. I don't know if Crystal or Bruce have other situations.
We maintain 3 different sites for 3 different entities. This is Crystal. But it's all for basically in-house and maybe external just here at Langley.
Sure. And I'm sorry, when I use the word client maybe as it would be better to maybe think of the word partner. Like, you're probably not making the website only for yourself. Like, you've got admins or content people or others, I guess. I'm guessing. Is that accurate?
About half the time, maybe, but it's for other people on center. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. Sure.
Yep, same here. Yep.
Yeah. No, certainly. I mean, like, we have our own website as well. Sorry. So, like, this is again the natural language we have is that of working with others to help build their websites. But even with our own website, certainly these things all apply. I guess that exposure is just maybe we've had that many more chances to see things go wrong.
Right. Yeah, but I think regardless, things can go wrong.
Yeah.
They do go wrong every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
And people can install modules and explode the site. They can accidentally delete things and explode the site. Stuff happens.
Yeah, no.
So you got to be ready for it.
Right, and it especially hurts when you're the person doing the thing.
Yeah, who's got to pick up the pieces that have exploded.
Yeah. Well, no, when you're the person who did the exploding.
Oh, yeah, that's not
fun
either.
Been that person too.
Yeah.
Like, whoops. Always make a backup before you do an upgrade, etc.
So, avoiding explosions.
Yep.
Backup and Migrate, as we said earlier, Backup and Migrate is the module that you would use to create backups, and that includes creating schedules for when those backups happen, identifying destinations where those backups should be stored, adding notes, and just also, with the latest version of Backup and Migrate, you can decide if you want to grab the database, the public files directory, or the whole thing. And you can set different schedules for backing up those different pieces. And we'll take a look at at where that happens in a bit. Within Backup and Migrate, there are options for how you actually manage those backups. Whether you keep X number or use a smart delete system, which again, we'll take a look at that and lets you keep targeted backups at daily, so many daily, so many weekly, so many monthly. And then you would also use Backup and Migrate if you ever need to actually restore using one of those backups. So that's what Backup and Migrate does. And it also comes with an additional set of tools to kind of expand its functionality.
Yeah. So these, it doesn't. I mean, these are just other modules that like Backup and Migrate is established well enough that other tools in the ecosystem are integrated with it. So Elysia Cron, so setting your backups to I only want to run it at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2:07 or whatever. Having that kind of flexibility. AES encryption, so having a double encrypting of backups. And doing exportables for your schedules and such, working with Drush. The NodeSquirrel secret key is very specific to NodeSquirrel, but keeping having a we can talk about that later as it comes up. Before I'm sorry, we kind of chat a little bit. We said some stuff about Backup and Migrate. I don't know if that was enough or too much actually, and I can't look at the room to see if everyone's
no, I think that was a great introduction. I think a lot more questions might pop up as we see it in action. So let's go.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah, enough chatter. Let's go use some of it.
Share.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Okay, yeah, so this is the Backup and Migrate interface for on our website. So when you start with Backup and Migrate, I'm just clicking on. Did I click? Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Okay, so when you get into Backup and Migrate, there's a few different tabs, but the big one is to just make a backup. And when you out of the box, this is what the latest version of Backup and Migrate looks like. So backup my database to where you're going to go. Different options. Again, we see NodeSquirrel being one of the options there. And default settings, we can kind of take a look at that. So what this is right now is it's excluding data from tables that Drupal will recreate, like hash tables, for example. You can configure this. We'll see where that is. But actually, so let's just so demo note. If you want to, right before I install the one right before the new feature release. And making a backup is quick, and it happens.
There.
It's fast. Yeah, exactly right. So it's it gives you a little confirmation and such, tells us where it is. It takes 2 seconds. So this isn't the largest website ever, but it's nice. It runs quickly, and the fact that you can just schedule this then kind of takes care of things.
Right. I
mentioned there's what are you going to back up? There's, again, some different things, the public files directory that you probably need, in Drupal. The database is the thing that probably changes the most. But, you might have a daily or hourly schedule for the database, and then you might also want to have maybe a daily or weekly schedule for public files. Entire site, maybe you grab, even less frequently. Again, you've probably got version control, managing your code and such. And then where you're storing it, again, being an option. Email is a possibility.
Though not one that we really
would
recommend.
Not recommend.
Right.
It was. There's a long story behind why that exists, but emailing sensitive information is probably not the right thing to do. So we would strongly caution against that. And again, then the settings being, we can go take a look at maybe some of the settings. That was. Sorry, maybe I'm off on the...
I was going to say, why don't we...
Technical, here we go.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to actually take a look at that. So the things... setting things to be like, what compression are you going to use? Are you going to append a timestamp? What are you going to include? So... a database backup one kind at least, you might not want to have the access log. You might not want to have, for example, some of the watchdog tables, like all of those things. You could, but I'll view these as checkboxes so we can see a few more. So things like the various cache tables being things that Drupal will recreate. Do you really need to store those? Doing so is just overhead. But maybe you do have a use case. You do have a use case for keeping those or not. But out of the box, the defaults are to not recreate all of the search or not back up all of the derived search index kinds of information, for example, as well.
So we have the same options under public files.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like what areas we're going to what files we're going to back up, and when we're doing this, likewise, what are we going to exclude, if anything, and a couple other nice little features there too, like if a backup succeeds or a backup fails, send you an email. Use CLI commands. So if you have a server environment that will support something like MySQL dump or command line tools, basically, you can check this box so that it's using those more optimized tools. It's labeled experimental. That is primarily, that's experimental in the sense that it's just less well used. Backup Migrate by default is intended to have Drupal as its only dependency, and that is we think the vast majority of the hundreds of thousands of people using it are using it without this. And so experimental is all about I don't know, there's probably some configurations where something weird could happen where MySQL dump doesn't quite work. So, if you have someone who's familiar enough with servers to know what that might mean, you're probably fine with that. So those are a bunch of the different settings there. Did you have something you wanted?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so you can set up. We've got a schedules tab where you can edit your existing schedules and add additional ones here. Examples would be backing up the database once a day, or maybe it's 4 times a day, depending on how often data is being written to it. Back up your files. Maybe that's once a day. Maybe that's once a week. It's going to, again, depend on what kind of a site you've got, and then full backup as well. So those setting up minimally those 3 types of backups would probably do a really good job of covering what your site and if you ever need to go to revert to a backup. I want to make sure that we pointed out the delete options. So when you create a backup schedule, one of the options is to automatically delete old backups. And there are 2 options there, Smart Delete and Simple Delete. I'll just start with Simple Delete. That's just keep X number of backups. And if I were to say keep 20, once I hit backup 21, the oldest one it gets jettisoned. Smart Delete is going to keep hourly backups, as it says, for 24 hours, daily backups for the past 30 days, and weekly backups forever. So that's a just set it and forget about it option that's really nice.
Mm-hmm. You guys, can I quickly ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is really cool. I'm running, it must be a slightly older version, so I see a ton of new features here, which are really great. And I just wanted to comment before I forgot that being able to tie in the files and all that in these simple versus smart is just so cool. So really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I should mention, if anybody doesn't actually have it installed already, obviously it's Drupal module. Well, maybe not, obviously. Let's just mention, this is where you get it, Drupal.org, Backup Migrate. Ronan is not on the call right now, but we can see him. He's in the room over there. Hi, Ronan. So this is...
so the latest version is 7.3, and that is the version that has the new features that you've noticed. So addition of public files and Smart Delete as well.
Any other questions or comments while we're... All right, we'll take that as no.
So once you've made backups, you've tested, and really, I think the process that we'd recommend for implementing the module is obviously install it. Mm-hmm. Use the quick backup tool that you would see here in the backup screen, and just make sure that it's going to work. Run a backup, ideally even do a quick restore with it as well. Mm-hmm. Make sure things are functioning as you expect, and then go set up schedules for doing regular backups. Set it, forget about it, then you're golden. Then if you do need to restore, your backups are going to appear, and she clicks on the restore tab, and it's taking a sec. There we go. Oh.
What were we going to look for there?
There we go. Oh, I just wanted to point out that you've got a couple of options. If you aren't using NodeSquirrel, mm-hmm. then when you want to do a restore, you're going to come to this tab and either choose a file, and basically you're going to choose your file that you want to restore from, and then identify what it is you're going to be restoring, yep. Right? Yep.
You can also see this too from the save backups, which is, again, the interface has changed a little bit in the last while. So that we see here, we're looking at all of the recent backups. Here's the one that the one at the very top here is the right before the new feature release. The note I typed just a moment ago. But we see that I have something from 20 hours ago as well. And this one actually happens to be stored offsite at NodeSquirrel. It looks like most of the recent backups, there's some scheduled backups and such, but most of the recent backups are from at NodeSquirrel here. And then so just storing them, so you can download any of these. Just click, boom. And that's kind of the big thing. I suppose it probably makes sense to mention the NodeSquirrel tab. So NodeSquirrel is built into Drupal into Backup and Migrate as of the 3. No, it started in 2 at some point recently. Built into. Once it's pretty much like Malum or the other, like Google Analytics or something else like that, we get a secret key, plop it in, and then your backups are stored out there as well, as long as you configure that. And so the NodeSquirrel tab tells you the status of that. If you don't have something configured, it will it'll say, here, paste in your key, go ahead, it's free trial sort of thing.
So when you
Carrie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to note that Bruce asked a quick question in the chat here. He asked, is there a message if the backup fails? And if so, I'm just curious what that's sort of like and what options you can configure with that.
Yeah. If we go to backup, in the backup, there's the email option, advanced backup here. One of these guys has an option, advanced option. So send an email if the backup fails. And so and it just gives you sort of a generic, backup failed, or it's a super generic thing. Likewise, you could do the same thing for if a backup succeeds. And by default, I think it takes the admin account on the site. You probably don't want if it succeeds, but you might. But yeah, that would be the notification system that's built in.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm going to switch back to our slides here. Oops. So as we mentioned earlier, NodeSquirrel is basically cloud backup for Backup and Migrate. So it's a paid service, and if you use it, basically NodeSquirrel becomes the storage service that you use for your Backup and Migrate backups. As you mentioned, it's secure and encrypted. And I think the phrase is encrypted at rest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's encrypted over the wire, and it's encrypted at rest. Again, trying to make it easy to do the right thing. It's very simple interface, and we can take a look at that too in a minute. But it's not terribly surprising. You just look at it and see a bunch of backups and download one if you need to. And it's pretty fast to set up, and it once again puts the backups in your control. Last week we hope we've made it easier to do the right thing by making it pretty low cost. The basic plans are $9 a month, and so that covers the needs of most single sites, probably a lot of the kinds of sites that you guys are building. For basically $100 a year, you get a little, hopefully a lot of added peace of mind, and never have to use it kind of service until that one horrible, horrible day when you realize, oh my goodness, this just saved me a lot. There are a couple of limitations with it that actually should just mention, in conjunction with Backup Migrate as well. That being mostly this is exposed with NodeSquirrel, but PHP timeouts and file sizes. So if you have a single file that is larger than 5 gigabytes, so if you have a huge database, databases tend to compress quite well, maybe 8, 10, 12 to 1 sort of thing. But if you had like a 100 gigabyte database, even compressed, cache tables removed, etc., you might start pushing up against a hard limit of 5 gigabytes per upload. And you also might start running into PHP timeouts. So it uses PHP to create the archive, create the backup, and so that can be something to be aware of. And the place where in the real world where this comes into more practical happening is in say a lot of like a large video archive or something like that, where you're having to upload a number of very large video files, and it's taking a long time. The transfers all happen directly from your server to the NodeSquirrel backend, which happens to be an Amazon S3 bucket. There's just some kind of interesting architecture stuff that we didn't include in the slide, but I'd be happy to answer questions about like the way that works and such. Being sort of techno-geeky, it's fun to talk about. But so they tend to be very, they're using very high bandwidth connections. So it's using, typically those backups move quite quickly, but it's
they're
something
limited,
to be aware of.
They're limited to 5 gig in size.
Yeah, and then, but also like they can time out because of like how long it takes to push that much information.
Hey, real quick, that's great. It's really cool stuff to hear, especially for our science community who happen to manage a bunch of data through Drupal. So these are like really key points to highlight. So I have one other question, but Bruce asked a question here in the chat. And so he says, does NodeSquirrel have any government agency clients or any issues with security for federal agencies?
Oh, interesting. We have a number of, so we as a firm work with a variety of governmental and nonprofit clients, and I think a lot of other people who are in this space. I mean, that's pretty common. So certainly, I know that we have clients using NodeSquirrel. We don't have any federal clients. We have several different state governments. I know that we have some universities at different places that are public universities. Again, there's no such thing as a federal university. I don't know that we have any federal sites. That's interesting. In terms of federal security, obviously we're using Drupal, so like that's an established security entity. There's security things that we are familiar with, or that I would be able to answer more quickly, is something like PCI compliance. And that we are not PCI compliant primarily by virtue of not having really gone after it. Everything we're using should be theoretically PCI compliant, or also HIPAA compliant is another one. that just involves a lot of regulation and oversight that we honestly really haven't looked into for HIPAA compliance in particular. But we are using. I mean, it's everything is happening encrypted. It's encrypted at rest, and it's using Amazon's S3 storage. And there are ways to have a PCI compliant cloud storage. But again, what you're talking about, I don't think is PCI compliance. So I honestly don't know what standards you might need to comply to. So that's a really long way of saying I don't know.
That's totally cool. It's just great to get where you guys are at on that issue, and so that we can address those questions when they come up.
I'm curious, actually, if you mind telling us more. Like, what's the 3-letter acronym that people will ask about that you in turn need to know the answers to?
Yeah, that's a good question. For Woods Hole Ethnographic Institution, they're certainly concerned about security, but not in the way that a federal agency, I think, would be concerned. So I can't speak for them directly. I don't know if Bruce has any input or insight there.
Not really. I think it's always easier to talk to one agency if you're already doing business with another agency. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, we absolutely see that. We see that within state government. Like we work with, with various state government. The same kind of thing happens. Yeah, no, I wish maybe you guys could start using it, and then you could be that agency.
Right. Hey, Drew, I had a quick question about the limitations. So have you guys had any clients come up against those limitations? And what have been the solutions for those situations?
We do have some pretty big sites using Backup Migrate and NodeSquirrel. I'm not positive that we have actually got one. What we would do in that situation is, like if you're up against by limit, for example, and that's what that's what you need to back up. And really, I mean, that's just an honest question. That's again probably something like a large number of files, or a small number of very large files. In which case, you might have another backup system in place. The likelihood of running up against a database backup with this limitation, especially when it's something like just large data sets. I mean it's an extraordinary. Well, I shouldn't. Maybe you guys have a different. In my experience, that's a very large data set, and certainly my experience colors what I think is large, I guess. But like 100 gigs of uncompressed, non-cache, other things like that. I think that's large. I don't know, but maybe. Not being is that normal or is that big for you guys too?
No. I would say 99% of the sites that I know about would be more than under that limit. We just get the super nerdy guys or folk that love to ask those edge questions. So
yeah.
Them addressed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've talked with other people, they found that Backup Migrate and NodeSquirrel can be a really good fit for making sure that there are good usable backups of the database.
Yeah.
And when you've got the database, you've got 80% of your site covered in terms of what would be super difficult to try and recover, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when the public files are just too big, there's just much of that, then they use like rsync.
Yeah, something like, there's other options that can handle that kind of thing. Or, FTP backups and such.
Sure.
Also, like all kinds of other things. The hopeful point of both Backup Migrate and NodeSquirrel is that you don't have to set up something custom for every single different site, and this is this way and the other one's that way. And even if you're just managing one, doing something that is secure, that is encrypted, that you can just set up and be done with, and that is working and is going to send you an email if it doesn't, like all of those things, add, I think, some niceties that, for example, maybe you could set up an rsync. You could do some shell scripting to have MySQL dump do things, and then transfer your files somewhere. And while it's certainly doable, in practice, it's just a bit more to maintain. And hopefully, what this does again is kind of makes it easy to do a good job.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Trying to make it, exactly. Trying to do the right thing. Make it a little bit easier to handle.
Yeah, I mean, this is great, and I think the big takeaway is $9 a month. That's fantastic.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, it shouldn't. I mean, yeah. We're hoping to make it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bruce is raising his hand. I just want to make sure you got a chance to chime in.
I have my hand up. There it is. It's a little handy thing. No, I just had a question about your sort of business model, and it could be that, let's say, NASA, which runs its own cloud, really wants to have a license to use the NodeSquirrel software stack to do backups to its own cloud. Is that something that might be in the future?
Yeah, we've very much talked about that, and we don't have anyone doing that now. I think. Here, let's go. I'll let you go back for that. Pardon the schedule pop up there. We don't have anyone doing that now. I think some large universities also are people who have raised that question with us. Really open to it, but haven't. It's not something we've done in any sort of aggressive way or really been seeking out. So
it'd be interesting to have further conversation about it.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of hear that and think, wow, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, that's about as far as unless we keep talking. I don't know.
Yeah, because I could see a number of agencies are using Drupal now, and that list is expanding. And if you wanted to, get some part of your team that starts to look at federal government stuff, and you get a GSA number or something like that, they can write a contract with you that's going to work out to everyone's advantage, and it's just a thought.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting. We haven't really identified. Well, I mean, to be quite. So this is we're sort of servicing the open source community, and we haven't, I would say, aggressively marketed ourselves in any way to make it, to do something like GSA, which is something we actually have looked at in the other part of our business, which is Gorton Studios, which works with lots of cool clients and such, and again, a fair number of governmental folks. But I actually haven't even. It never even occurred to me to do something like that for NodeSquirrel. That's interesting.
Well,
cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Sure. No, this is really valuable.
Awesome.
I mean, this just hits a sweet spot on the how to keep things up when someone stupid does something on your site. This is the big problem with universities. As they start having 50 or 80 Drupal sites, and they're bringing in grad students to add modules or do this or that, and they open up some kind of security leak, and the site gets wonky. What do? Right? So they're not really prepared to do this kind of backup because they're, the anthropology department. They don't know,
Right.
Why should they do that? Because it's a university too, and nothing ever goes wrong in a university. So.
Well, I should mention that you actually can, if you install Backup Migrate and you want to give NodeSquirrel a try, you can do that for free. You can store up to 20 backups on NodeSquirrel. So set your schedule and to whatever kind of interval you'd like backups to run, and try it. Yeah.
Make sure it's the easy thing. Yeah. The other thing, as we were creating it, one of the things we were trying to do is make something that we would be willing to use. So the idea of none of us, particularly, for whatever reason, we don't like the idea of have to put in your credit card in order to try. Just feel a little bit like, oh, I don't. So there's no credit card required. Just go ahead, try it, and if it works, please sign up.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So to try it for free, do you just go to the NodeSquirrel tab on Backup and Migrate and set it up there, or?
Yep.
Where do we
Right, yeah, you need to
click the link, paste it, pop, done.
Install the module. You'll see the NodeSquirrel tab. It will walk you through the instructions of going out to the NodeSquirrel site, creating your user account, getting your secret key, and off you go.
Yeah. It's probably 2 or 3 steps there, but it's pretty quick.
And there are instructions on the NodeSquirrel website as well for all of that.
Yeah. Cool.
So.
All right. Any last questions? Further questions?
No, let me say I think this is going to be very popular on the YouTube channel. I think people will be checking it out, even though they didn't make it today.
Excellent. Well, if you hear people who have questions, we're always happy to chat with folks. So.
Yeah, if anybody has, you can maybe funnel them through Adam and then to us or just directly to us, whatever. Yeah. We're happy to chat.
We like chatting, yeah.
Do you have a slide with your contact info?
That's a really good idea. Here, wait, do we have it? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm giving our Gorton Studios addresses too, but those work quite well.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you guys so much. This was such a cool presentation, and your energy is fantastic. I can't wait to tell my boss about this opportunity. So I'm sure other folk around ESIP, the Drupal Working Group, will be excited about this too. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Very much.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye now.